Okay, thanks very much, Camilla, for the introduction. It's a distinct honor as chair of the Earth BioGenome Project Working Group to welcome all of you from around the world to the Biodiversity Genomics 2022 conference. This conference is actually the fifth Biodiversity Genomics meeting. We began in February 2017 at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., with the idea to bring together those interested in generating, in studying, and utilizing genomes from Earth's millions of eukaryotic species, all under one roof. And today, we begin our fifth meeting, which promises to be the most well-attended on biodiversity genomics to date. So what started out in 2017 as a few hundred interested participants, last year's virtual meeting brought together 1,800 individuals from more than 100 countries. And we expect that this year, as the program is available at convenient times across every time zone in the world, have even greater participation. So I'd like to take a minute to thank the meeting's chairs and co-chairs for putting together such an intricate and balanced program, a truly spectacular feat that recognizes and celebrates the incredible diversity of the biodiversity genomics community. And I'd also like to take a moment to thank all of those behind the scenes who worked so hard to make this year's global conference a reality. Now, it has been an incredibly productive and inspiring year for the Earth BioGenome Project, which has been due to the work of many people. I'd like to begin by thanking the EBP's leadership for their extraordinary altruism and commitment to the EBP. First, John Kress, project co-chair, who's represented the EBP at the Convention on Biological Diversity. John has donated much time to this activity. And Jean Robinson, project co-chair, who has been a tireless advocate for the EBP in Washington, D.C. and around the world, and helped launch an entirely new EBP-affiliated project on bees. Hank Greeley, the chair of the ELSI committee, and Melissa Goldstein, co-chair of the ELSI committee, Federica De Palma, who chairs the International Scientific Committee, and the co-chairs of the Justice, Equity, and Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Sadie Paez and Marcelo Ileana da Silva, and Nicolette Caparello, who chairs our Communications Committee and is the managing director of the Earth BioGenome Project at the Home Secretariat in Davis, California. I also want to thank the International Scientific Committee and subcommittees for their continued outstanding work in developing standards for the project. These standards are critical to the EBP's success. And I remind you that the reports from the standards committees can be found on the Earth BioGenome Project's website. The central theme of my talk this year is Together We Rise, a celebration of diversity for the EBP community and its commitment to environmental justice, equity in the benefits of the project, and to the project's inclusiveness, which has gathered enthusiasts from across the globe. But first, let us review some of the year's highlights. By now, we all know that the Earth BioGenome Project is an international network of networks that has its common goal to sequence and annotate the genomes of all 1.8 million described species of eukaryotes in 10 years. The goal is to create a complete digital repository of eukaryotic life on Earth, a digital repository that is open and freely available to all for scientific research and for the benefit of humanity. The EBP has promoted the view that this knowledge will guide future discoveries for generations and will provide a foundation for the future of biology and a sustainable and equitable bioeconomy. One of the major achievements of the EBP community this past year was the publication in PNAS of a special feature consisting of 10 papers that mark progress since the official launch of the project in 2018. Even the design of the cover emphasizes the geographically diverse representation of the EBP's affiliated projects and the sources of biodiversity that have been used for genome sequencing. The special feature has papers that highlight topics ranging from why sequence all eukaryotes, to conservation, to the ethical, legal, and social issues facing the Earth BioGenome Project, and balancing openness of data with indigenous data sovereignty. Congratulations to all the authors on these landmark papers. The Earth BioGenome Project is now a large, diverse, and inclusive organization. The network of network contains 51 affiliated projects in 22 countries, with more than 5,000 participants spread over more than half of the world. The EBP is open to all and strives to be a model for large-scale scientific collaborations, providing equal opportunities for all people everywhere. The EBP members are committed to the development and implementation of technical standards for the project. The members are also committed to open data access, a commitment to environmental justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and respect for indigenous and sovereign rights. Two important reports were produced by the EBP committees that can be found on the EBP's website. First, I'd like to highlight the report by Anne McCartney on data sharing and management best practices, and the report by Hank Greeley and the ELSI committee, the statement of principles on digital sequence information. These principles are intended to guide the project to an equitable future for all project participants. So where are we with this big project? So far, there are 25 projects registered under the EBP Umbrella Bio Project in NCBI and integrated into the GOAT system that has been developed at the Wellcome Sanger Institute. And I'll talk about the GOAT system in a few minutes. To date, there are 1,074 species that have been sequenced, representing 518 eukaryotic families. The EBP pilot phase has brought us 5.4% of the way toward our phase 1 goal of sequencing one representative species from each eukaryotic taxonomic family. Now, scale up is clearly happening. So far in 2022, EBP affiliated projects have produced 351 new genomes that have all been deposited into INSPC databases. Now, that's more than 1.28 genomes per day, every day of the year. This represents a more than doubling of the output in 2 years and nearly doubling of the number of families in 2 years. This is really astounding, but the global output will need to increase to 9 genomes per day for us to meet the phase 1 goal of sequencing one representative species of each eukaryotic family in 3 years. And that is definitely a challenge before us. I also want you to note that these new assemblies are chromosome scale assemblies, most of them. And you can see how dramatic the rise has been in the chromosome scale assemblies relative to the scaffold assemblies shown here in dark blue. Belatedly, one of the main contributions of the EBP is in the qualities of the genomes that have been produced. Now, 41% of all of the reference quality genomes in the entire world that meet the EBP minimum standard of 1 megabase contig N50 and 10 megabase scaffold N50 minimum were created by EBP affiliated projects, while 55% of all of the sequences and assemblies representing eukaryotic families that reach the EBP metric were produced by EBP affiliated projects. And I might add that this is an underestimate because only half of the projects have been integrated into the GOAT system. Now, these are truly, truly impressive numbers that the world should take note of. Now, where has this progress been coming from? Much of the progress that has been made is owed to the Darwin Tree of Life project at the Wellcome Sanger Institute. This project is directed by Professor Mark Blackster, who you'll be hearing more from during this conference. Now, as of this month, DTOL, as it is known, has collected more than 6,100 new specimens for sequencing. DTOL has completed and made publicly available for sequencing 387 species that represent 133 eukaryotic families across the history of life. These assemblies are freely available for use by all, and most of these assemblies meet or exceed the EBP quality standards. And Mark promises me that 2,000 species will be completed or nearly completed by the end of this year. Tremendous accomplishment from DTOL, and my hats off to Mark and the entire team at Sanger. The team at Sanger that is led by Richard Chalice, Sujai Kumar, Max Brown, and Sibeli Soterakayo has been involved in creating the GOAT system, or genomes on a tree, which I suspect you're going to be hearing a lot about at this meeting. GOAT is serving the dual purpose as the main platform for storing genome-related metadata for the Darwin Tree of Life and now for the entire world. To date, as I mentioned, 25 of the EBP-affiliated projects have been fully integrated into this fabulous system. And my hat's off to this incredible team. Another main contributor to the EBP is the Vertebrate Genomes Project, led by Eric Jarvis. The VGP has sequenced and assembled the genomes of 106 species, mostly vertebrates, and has 47 genomes currently in progress. The project aims to complete its goal of sequencing a representative of each vertebrate order this year, with its ultimate target of sequencing all 80,000 species of vertebrates. Importantly, the VGP has been leading the development of approaches for standards for the entire EBP. My hat's off again to Eric and his entire team at Rockefeller University for their contributions over the past year. In fact, together, the Darwin Tree of Life project and the Vertebrate Genomes Project have sequenced 85% of the species currently tracked in the GOAT system. And progress across the world is rapidly accelerating. These efforts that began 5 years ago are spawning other new large-scale projects. The new Biodiversity Genomics Europe project, an exciting project announced last week, is a truly exciting development. The BGE is a joint project of Bioscan Europe and ERGA that will serve as a European node for the Earth Biogenome Project. The project, which is directed by Camilla Mazzoni and our meeting chair, Peter Hollingsworth and Bob Waterhouse, brings together more than 200 European organizations for the purpose of accelerating the use of genomic science to enhance understanding of biodiversity, monitor biodiversity change, and guide interventions to address its decline. Congratulations to the BGE team for bringing its major project online. Another exciting development this year is the emergence of Africa BP, led by Anne Mugai, our meeting co-chair, and thank God Ebenezer. This project brings together more than 41 partners in 36 countries, including most of the African nations. And I remind you that you can learn more about Africa BP in a major 2-hour session that immediately follows after my morning version of this talk. As described in Nature earlier this year, the Africa BP aims to sequence 100,000 African species with the overarching goals of conservation and improving and protecting Africa's food supply. Africa BP, along with its partners, is also involved in capacity building across the continent so that African scientists can play a major role in characterizing the biodiversity of Africa. Together we rise, not only because of the excellent science that is being done across the world, representing the EBP's geographic diversity, but also because of the gender and ethnic diversity of the EBP's participants. The EBP's JEDI committee, led by Sadie Paez and Marcelo Liliano da Silva, and the JEDI committee's 16 other members from 11 countries have been playing an essential role in the creation of data and metrics on the project's participants and their views on access and benefit sharing and the rights of indigenous peoples and local communities. These mostly young people are the future of the EBP and have given the project new hope and new energy for an equitable scientific future for all the project's participants. So I thank all of you who are serving on this committee for your contributions to the project. If you're interested in JEDI activities during the meeting, there will be 6 JEDI Fora across the world starting this morning and continuing after my talk. The JEDI Fora were among the most attended and favored events in last year's program, and I urge all of you to attend this year's JEDI sessions. Finally, as chair of the Earth BioGenome Project, I thought I'd share why I believe diversity is so important to the long-term success of the project. Clearly, progress on the EBP's goals requires lowering the barriers for participation for all the scientists around the world. How can we achieve this? First, by promoting geographic diversity of the affiliated projects. Endemic species comprise a significant fraction of the world's biodiversity. No country has all Earth's biodiversity, or even more than 10% of it, and no country can do this project alone. Geographical diversity creates the opportunity for national, regional, and local buy-in, and also creates conditions for equitable sharing of benefits. Second, promoting cultural, gender, and ethnic diversity. Developing trust for open collaboration requires cultural understanding. Trust is absolutely essential for data sharing, capacity building, and ultimately for funding support. Without access and sharing of data, there will be no benefits, no scientific benefits, and no economic benefits. And without sharing the benefits, there will be no access to biological resources or to digital sequence information. All voices must be heard. The voices of indigenous peoples and local communities, who are the stewards of a vast segment of biodiversity. Their voices must be heard, and their rights must be protected. I'll conclude by saying that science has the power to unite us. Science has the power to motivate us. Science has the proven power to change the world for the good. Together we will rise, and together we will succeed. I want to thank all of you for your attention, and I look forward to receiving your questions.